You might not remember when it started. There wasn't a single moment, not one major heartbreak or obvious crisis. It crept in slowly, like fog slipping in beneath a closed door. First came a heaviness in your chest. Then, the quiet spaces in your mind began to stretch. The things you used to love lost their spark. You nodded along in conversations, but inside, you felt yourself slowly fading. You called it depression. That's the label everyone uses. But what if it's something else? What if this isn't the end, but a beginning? Carl Jung spent 6 years in a similar darkness. He didn't call it a breakdown. He saw it as a journey inward. From that descent came his most profound work, the Red Book. He never planned to publish it in his lifetime. It was filled with symbols, voices, and dialogues with forces beyond logic. Above all, it held a message for people like you. You're not falling apart. You're waking up. This isn't some comforting spiritual cliché. It's a psychological shift. Right now, you feel disconnected, unmotivated, exhausted. You can't quite explain what's wrong. You cry in secret, wear a smile in public. But Jung discovered this darkness isn't always a malfunction. Sometimes, it's your soul withdrawing from a life that no longer feels true. You're not broken. You're being called inward. Jung didn't run from that chaos. He dove in. He met confusion, inner monsters, and unraveling identities. But through the storm, he kept listening. And what he found was his soul. Maybe you don't need to medicate this away. Maybe you're not supposed to get better. Maybe you're supposed to fall apart on purpose, so the false self can come undone, and something more real can rise. That's what this message is really about. Turning the story you've been told about suffering upside down. You're not weak. You're being pulled inward by something older and deeper than your everyday self. If this resonates deeply, we invite you to follow the Soul Vault Chronicles. This channel isn't here to sell you another quick fix or promise instant magic. It's a vault of rare transmissions, long-form, grounded, and honest. We explore the unspoken layers of manifestation, nervous system healing, and the forgotten wisdom of the body. No hype, just the truth most people never tell you. Spoken slowly, with depth. If you're ready to stop chasing and start embodying, this is your space. Subscribe and return to the vault whenever your soul needs remembering. Imagine you've been living in a house, performing roles in every room. But now, you've wandered into the basement. It's dark and silent. Most people run from that space, back to noise and distraction. But if you stay, if you sit in that silence, eventually, something speaks. I've been waiting for you. That voice is the real you. The part that didn't want perfection, only truth. Jung didn't flee that voice. He faced it. And no, it didn't bring instant clarity. It brought confusion, visions, raw emotion. But through it all, he discovered his true self. So maybe your emptiness isn't a disorder. Maybe it's a revolt of the spirit. Maybe the life you built was never yours to begin with. And now, the mask is falling. People will go to great lengths to avoid facing their soul. But not you. Because if you're still here, some part of you already knows this pain isn't random. It's a message, quietly demanding your attention. We've sanitized this process today. We call it illness, reduce it to brain chemistry. Jung saw something different. He called it a confrontation with the unconscious. He encountered symbols, voices, and dreamlike figures, like Philemon, his inner guide, and the Red One, his embodiment of shadow desire. They weren't hallucinations. They were aspects of himself waiting to be acknowledged. This is the truth most ignore. What we call depression might be the return of truth. Truth about hollow relationships, inherited ambitions, and identities we put on just to feel accepted. When the soul gets tired of pretending, it retreats, not with drama, but with silence, fatigue, disinterest. That's your mind turning down the volume so you can finally go deeper. Jung treated the unconscious not as a flaw, but as a sacred map made of dreams, moods, and symbols. He called this process a psychic death, losing identity, certainty, and comfort. But from that death, something real emerges. Awakening doesn't feel like joy at first. It feels like falling apart. You cry, rage, go numb. You feel like you're dying. And in a way, you are. Because, as Jung said, there is no coming to consciousness without pain. To become real, you must give up the life that was performative. You must stop choosing what's safe over what's true. The pain you feel? It's the old life breaking down. But society wants you to medicate it, suppress it, keep functioning. Because an awakened soul can't be controlled. It no longer chases fake dreams. It wants truth. That's what the Red Book was, a record of letting go. A guide through the fire of transformation. So if you feel like you're unraveling, if you can't pretend anymore, don't fear it. That pain is your true self trying to emerge. You're not regressing. You're expanding. You're outgrowing a life that was never big enough for your soul. Yes, at first it feels like loss. You stop craving what used to matter. The people, the music, the goals. They don't fit anymore. And that's terrifying. But it's also your beginning. Because Jung understood, light doesn't come from avoiding darkness. It comes from bringing it into awareness. And that darkness, it's not outside you. It is you. The parts you hid to be accepted. And when your soul stirs, everything changes. Relationships may quietly fall apart. You'll stop chasing, stop pretending, stop caretaking. People may say you've changed, but really, you've just stopped wearing the mask. You'll grieve who you used to be, the people pleaser, the performer. They protected you, but now their time is done. That hollow space inside you, it's sacred. That's where your real self begins to bloom. You'll feel emotional chaos, joy, grief, rage, numbness. But Jung would say, that's not dysfunction, it's healing. Your unconscious is bringing it all up to be witnessed. Eventually, you'll stop caring about approval. The applause, the attention, it won't matter anymore. You'll speak truth, even if it's misunderstood. You'll crave solitude, not validation. And you'll become a mirror. Your authenticity will unsettle others, not because you're harsh, but because you no longer hide. You'll set boundaries, and some will see it as rejection. But that's no longer your burden to carry. Jung ended up alone, misunderstood, but deeply whole. Even his peers thought he'd lost his mind. But he couldn't go back. Once you glimpse your soul, pretending is no longer an option. This process may last months, years, but you are not falling apart. You're becoming who you were meant to be.